embraced it, but has fun with it. And I will never forget him turning up at BlizzCon with a bloody French hat and stuff. Like, yeah, I'm a big fan of Drogo. Anyhow, spawning over in the bottom right-hand side, representing Team Liquid on Blackburn, it is uThermal.
SCV heading out very early towards this man's base in the southwest. The red Protoss, he is PtitDrogo.
I think what's going to be very interesting for both these guys is whether they get to do what they practiced or not. Because Drogo, I've heard Harstem talk about his prep a lot, and Harstem really respects Drogo a lot. And he talked about trying to do what Drogo does is so damn difficult because Drogo has this tree diagram almost in his head of, okay, if I see this at this time, I react in this way. And then if I see this at that time, I react this way, you know? And he goes down, he has this like checklist that he goes through, and he's very, very mathematical about what works and what doesn't, which makes it, if you try and copy something that he's doing, but you don't know the next step, then you're gonna get it wrong. So Drogo seeing this, he's gonna have a very, very mapped out response to it. Gets the Zealot going, gets the Cyber Core. Maybe this would have been a Nexus before core kind of thing. Oh, actually cancels the Zealot here, just making sure. Aha, very unusual.
How are we feeling about that? Is he giving up some of the agency in defending this type of attack? That Reaper's going to come in with, I mean, the Stalker should be on the way, or Adept, whichever he chooses to go for, but is there still a little bit of opportunity for this Reaper to get something done, you think, Ben?
I mean, it definitely can get something done. Seeing the bunker going down at the natural here, Drogo already has the pylon on the low ground, meaning he can throw down a shield battery. He's getting the Stalker out very quickly as well. This is already a bit of a wily game, which I think is what uThermal absolutely wanted to turn this into.
Yeah, create a little bit of chaos as that Reaper gets a couple of these probes down low, gets the first kill, and because, especially with that bunker being built in the natural, you can't quite deal with both areas at the exact same time. So Reaper does its thing, gonna use the grenade to boop away, does not actually make it to the bunker though, and I think that's gonna take a good bit of the pressure off of Drogo. Just one Reaper when he's already got the Stalker out, and now shield battery booting up in the natural. He shouldn't be able to do too much here, right? Is that just the SCV hiding in the bunker? Maybe he wanted to do some repair shenanigans, but I don't think one Reaper is going to be quite enough for the pressure that he was maybe looking for.
No, certainly not. And you know, for uThermal, this is super rough. He's got one Widowmine out, but realistically, if there was two Reapers in that bunker, can it get something done? Maybe. It would definitely force the shield battery to go up, which you can be like, at least I got that, but all things said and done, Drogo's going to be looking at this and he's like, well, you know what? Definitely not too bad. And I see uThermal in that webcam. He's kind of muttering away to himself and definitely not going to be happy with how that went thus far.
Yeah, I think you said it best there. Drogo's probably at worst, he's like, that could have been worse, right? It really wasn't anything catastrophic. He's still getting that Twilight Council up. Hasn't had his economy significantly affected, just continuing to push out probes on those two Nexus, while the armory starts for uThermal. So I'm guessing what we're going to see is using the invisibility right after the shot when they burrow inside the base, do a kind of more committed mine drop in that way, looking to get some more damage over time. And since he went straight for that Twilight, I don't believe we have that robo. It's just beginning now. So if there's no observer there, the potential for getting an extra shot or two off on these mines could be pretty huge.
It absolutely could be. Like, Drogo's got nice positioning in his main base and stuff, like nice pylon positioning going on, but this is going to hit ridiculously quick. Like, uThermal going for 3 Widowmines afterwards, after all this, like, he was so open to any sort of counterattack, which never happened. Granted, he was defending with his Widowmines, but this is getting in totally unscouted until the last moment here, and the Widowmine, he attacks, he pulls immediately, but the armory's finished. The Widowmine actually shot a probe in the gas, so it didn't go off. And I think, Drogo, honestly, great reactions by the Frenchman.
Wow, yeah, he's just kind of deflecting it. It's we're watching one of those kung fu movies. He just blocks every punch in his hand. He's totally fine. The probes run into the assimilator to hide. These mines look like they'll be able to shoot again, so I guess a couple of these probes on the gas are in jeopardy, and he's gonna get a few on the way out. Well, at least splash damages the southern one. So 4 probes I guess better than what it could have been. He's going to save one of those mines on the way out as that observer appears. He's got the Raven coming up to follow this, so I'm not entirely sure. Just keeping that for general detection use, maybe a little bit of harass later as he gets the rest of his barracks up, and we see the rest of that transition going into bio. How do you like the mid game on Blackburn? These stalkers with blink can get out on the map at you have that direct drop path, Ben, but is it okay for him to just move all the stalkers out like this? Do you think he's got that freedom afforded to him?
I think he does, like he's actually held off most things pretty damn well, but uThermal setup here, having this like tank behind the wall and stuff, having the Raven there, he will know about this pretty late because he doesn't have a spotter depot over there or anything, but the tank immediately getting the shot off. And so far, I don't think uThermal's going to be too sad about this. He also has his own drop on the far left side going off again with that Widow Mine. So very nice and quick by uThermal, and this is going to be a big one. Oh, actually, it wasn't that big. That was maybe the most unfortunate fire again by uThermal.
Yeah, gets the Raven, by the way, as these handful of stalkers make it down to the natural. So really trying to get the most value that he can. We talk about that Widow Mine. We see sometimes those guys end the game with those big shots. No, there's nowhere to run here. Tries to blink across, but the wall is done. And the rest of these stalkers will die. But so the units that he had out on the map, right? They're gone. Has to rebuild those. But he's got the third Nexus finishing, 5 extra gateways, and the Warp Prism. So he should be able to get that army back up pretty soon. And I think that this is going to be a defining moment coming up here to Muslim as this attack makes its way out for uThermal. Multiple tanks. I do think he's going to really be missing that Raven. No auto turret support, no interference matrix support. And, well, we know there's not a lot of zealots, but if there were, you wouldn't have access to the anti-armor missile either.
He's so far ahead in supply right now, and Drogo, that's a nice blink to start things off and does get away for his troubles. That shield battery isn't going to last long. And like Stim isn't done yet, nor +1, nor the combat shields, but this push is in his face. Lots of gateways are finishing up now, which is a really, really big deal. But this, like uThermal pushed out before he was actually ready, but it's also way before Drogo was ready. So nice time buying. Drogo's going to be on the offense, the counterattack as well while this is going off. This is going to get crazy.
Yeah, I was thinking that he had set himself up reasonably nicely, but when those stalkers die and those are the only units that you have, the Terrans still building Marines the whole entire time. Drogo tries to push down the ramp, but there's just too many Marines and Marauders, and he wrecks him in game number 1. Well, there you go, to Muslim. uThermal goes for a bunch of early attacks. They don't really do too much for him, and then he just A-moves him with his army and gets that lockdown and manages to crush it anyway. I don't know. It's a weird feeling because that's why I was like asking, like, is this a bit adventurous? He's moving all of his stalkers across the map while he takes the third and gets these upgrades and extra, tech, but he didn't really have any meat left at home at all to deal with. Yeah, as you said, uThermal moved out before he was ready, but it ended up being the perfect time.
Yeah, I'm almost confused about that game. Like the move out by uThermal wasn't ready to make that move out. But yeah, the bigger deal was Drogo wasn't at all ready. And making a move like that, like knowing that you have to do something right here, right now, that was very good by uThermal. And the fact that he did that before he was actually ready to do it, just taking advantage of what he knew his opponent's position was very cute. Because yeah, the early game didn't go well for uThermal at all. It felt like some of the Widowmine shots also didn't connect with what they wanted to. There was definitely that one that connected with 3 probes, got every probe on the gas there, which was cool. But yeah, you can definitely tell that Drogo wasn't in the situation that he wanted to be in. Like the third was kind of late, the Robo wasn't quite on time. And this is what we saw from uThermal against Lilbo as well. He just did some kind of weird things, threw his opponent off. And when you're prepped for this, like you've prepped the chaotic play, when your opponent hasn't, that anti-prep can really throw off your opponent. So I like how uThermal entered this, and even though he is an emotional guy and I saw him muttering away to himself, he didn't let it take his mind off the prize, which yeah, that was very clean to see.
Yeah, I think you really said it best, was that it's actually a bit of that mental coming into play, because if I try to think about it from Drogo's perspective, maybe he felt that he had done enough, that uThermal would feel like he needs to kind of stay in his base and keep himself safe. Like he thought there might be another attack coming, or there might be a warp prism coming in sooner. You know, one of those situations where you're like, he wants me to just commit everything right now, sort of deal. Except that ended up being the right play. So I guess at the end of the day, maybe thinking a little bit too much about things is exactly what uThermal's just trying to avoid doing as we load into Oxide for game number 2. Let's see if things switch around, or if we keep that confident Terran play up. But regardless, in the top right, this guy, he kind of dealt with everything early on. He just needs to be a little bit more aware of that mid game, I guess. Our red Protoss player, he is PtitDrogo.
And spawning over in the bottom left as our blue Terran, it is uThermal. I was almost a bit disappointed that uThermal himself, even though he's been throwing around this whole ooh thing, didn't know what it meant, or at least didn't explain it. Because me being a boomer, Nate, I have
he's
no
appropriating the memes of other cultures that he does not wish to be a part of, Benjamin. And that is, you know, it's great advertising for those folks. But then you find out that Schloppy just doesn't, you know, he doesn't have the street cred to rep that. You know what I mean? It's like walking around with nice shoes, but you're not a part of Caleris's BMW club, right? You know, you don't have the right to dress that well in Poland if you're not paying taxes to Caleris and his family. And frankly speaking, you know, uThermal, I think we're going to see him stay under the radar a little bit on the animemes, as well. We know that they have a deep network of folks that mostly stay at their homes, but are always watching, and you've got to respect that group because there's a lot of them. There's still a lot of them out there.
Oh, I like this by uThermal. I've noticed Hero Marine doing this kind of stuff a lot recently. I had my troubles with Protoss, Nate, but they feel like they're becoming a thing of the past. And these little things like this, it's like, oh, you've been blocking me for like a year with your probe? Well, I'm going to do it too with my SCV. And you get away. And look at those Nexus and CC timings. Almost identical. No longer will Terrans be behind economically right from the get-go. It only took us, you know, 11 years of StarCraft 2 to figure out we can also block back, but we've done it. We've done it, Nate.
Yeah. Yes, and I love it. I love that you point that out too. Every Terran player out there knows when you look at your replays that command center is never quite as close in the build time tab as that Nexus. But that brings me back to like one of my favorite StarCraft memories when. I think it was when Flash was playing StarCraft 2 for one of the first times, and he just always did this engineering bay block against Protoss, and he's just like, yeah, well, my command center starts earlier, so whatever, you know, like, doesn't matter, I don't care. And everybody's like scratching their heads over it, but sometimes there is a little bit of value to throwing somebody off in one way or another. That one did not stick as the dominant strategy of the game, as we know, but I love that it's something that players are always kind of trying to find a way to do without it costing too much, of course.
No, absolutely. These little things, these little shifts in meta and things that you can do to throw off your opponent or get yourself ahead in the littlest way possible, they absolutely matter. Behind all this, Drogo has gone for a Twilight Council, which can signal that you're either going for Blink or DTs. I've always known him as a bit of a stalker guy myself, at least in this matchup. And we do see Blink has started, whereas uThermal, he's opting for the 3 racks play, far more aggressive and in your face. And yeah, Drogo's going to have to figure this one out, but you can only do that really with a Stalker and an Adept.
Yeah, the ramp on this map makes it a little bit nicer. I think one of the reasons why this map kind of gets brought up as being good for Terran. You have less range, right? You have a little less survivability with the Marines if you don't get that bunker, but the ramp kind of affords you the security to not need it. The Adept Shade will give some vision up for the poke. You can see a couple of the Marines get hurt, but nothing crazy happens yet. He's going to end up killing a Marine and the SCV working on that depot in exchange for the Adept. I guess if you're not losing the Stalker, those are kind of the more important units, right? You want to hold on to those a little bit more than the Adepts, I think, in this early stage.
Yeah, certainly. That probe was sat there at that third base for quite some time for Drogo. He does eventually get the Nexus going. He did warp in a few extra Stalkers just to be safe. uThermal's done a really good job of not revealing this until right now. And Drogo is very quick to react, and now he knows exactly what he's up against. But uThermal, he only used 5 or 6 Marines at the front there to defend. And Drogo now knows what he's up against. Blink is very soon to be done. but he wants to slow this down because that third is very vulnerable. uThermal has no idea, by the way, what he's up against, which is why these turrets are going up, because he's like, well, I haven't seen anything. Could be DTs for all I know.
Taking the better safe than sorry approach, especially with this move out, which seems to be something that uThermal may be using as a trend in this series. He's moving his units out a little bit earlier without quite all the normal support units you would typically think about in these scenarios. Focuses the shield battery first, but it's still a lot of blink stalkers. However, they're cornered, Benjamin. There's not really anywhere for them to go except trying to get around, and some of them are still managing to get around. Marine's going to grab one or two of them on the way out. That's a very expensive number of stalkers to lose this early on in the game, even though that third base is still going to get finished. I'm like, well, does he at what point is too much, or is losing this much bio giving up uThermal's ability to even do a follow-up attack?
So if I'm the Terran right now, I'm like, well, this build sucks. I'm never doing it again, because I don't feel that was quite enough. But yeah, Drogo's got himself into a nice position here. He can probe up like 1-0. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets up to a number like 62 here without flinching whatsoever. That starport's only halfway done. uThermal, he's got a mountain to climb from here, and Drogo's got all the freedom in the world. Yeah, granted, stalkers are quite expensive, but that resources lost tab, it doesn't lie. And losing your entire push like that, I think they both microed it about as good as you could. I just like the fact that Drogo, he didn't shift out of what he knew he had to do to stop that, right? Like, he went to meet it with the blink, bought time for the shield battery. Just everything was very clean by Drogo.
Yeah, and the observer's going to see the Marines and Marauders coming down the ramp a little bit here. It's not enough stalkers to do much other than just kind of say, okay, yeah, if you come down the ramp, maybe I'll take a shot, focus fire a unit, blink away. He doesn't have medevacs still, so you're not in a situation where you want to be stimming too many of your units. He kind of went with just the front line, then stimmed a bit of the middle there. And one of the stalkers does get picked off, so that is nice. I think that the biggest thing about that last game, right, we talked about the meat and the size of the army. If uThermal has definitely been doing one thing well, it's keeping that production going, keeping his macro up. He's getting those Marine and Marauder counts up. 8 Marauders, 13 Marines. He's the first Immortal coming out now for Drogo. Those should help anchor it. And well, we saw this play last game. The Prism is there. It's ready for this move out, and we're going to have a bunch of Zealots get warped inside the main base of uThermal. He has a couple of bio units to defend against this. I think with the medevacs finishing, he should be able to stop it, but we'll have to see. He's getting kited all the way back to his natural as more Zealots get warped into the main. Yeah, the Muslim, he's bringing the rest of the army back home.
He certainly is. And uThermal, he's kind of on 2 base only here. I was questioning this a lot. I was like, he's making Hellions. Was this a misclick? Did he mean to make Widowmines? But look at that. He's actually making an Armory as well. So all those guys in Twitch chat, they've been like, why don't you make Hellbats against this? Well, we're actually going to see someone go for it. Hellbats against the Zealots to help tank and deal damage to the Zealots. Because, I mean, uThermal, make no mistake, he's got no third on the way or anything like that. He's absolutely all in with this, and he's going to have to try and make miracles happen here. Because he's on a clock. Storm's going to finish in the next minute.
Yeah, and that's we all know that's going to be one of those things that basically say, look, if you don't have your third base set up, trying to afford a transition into ghosts on 2 bases is not exactly something that fits into the average Terran budget. And there's even more units being warped in, still getting that attack going. The SCVs actually got separated from the army. I guess the army's going to break down the rocks first. They're kind of off on that right side. So he is bringing everything over here to make this happen. But Ben, that Psystorm is so close to finishing. Just 10 seconds to go. Can PtitDrogo drag this out long enough and land those storms to keep this game in his pocket?
I don't know. He's fighting away from shield batteries and stuff, and uThermal splits are pretty damn good. The supplies are dead even almost, despite this push going on. But remember, uThermal, he's pulled all his boys here. His units are so damn low. Drogo kind of fighting with half his army, retreating with the other. All the storms are gone. There's just one remaining here. uThermal's making this as close as possible. He used a feedback instead of a storm. I don't know about that, Drogo. You're making it really damn close, but shield battery does recharge the entire army there. This is still quite close.
Yeah, that Archon actually really important, getting that extra splash damage and the soak in. The shield battery, like you mentioned, recharged it, but it did get picked off. This area between the 2 bases is one of the reasons why we talk about this being a strong Terran push map. It's hard to get any of the support units into this space. So he's forced down this ramp, but the continual kiting of uThermal's army, as good as it is, we have to remind ourselves, he did send the SCVs across the map. He doesn't have the economy to rebuild that army on anywhere near the same scale as Drogo. So as long as Drogo doesn't die, he's comfortably enjoying a 40 worker lead, as well as, you know, at least the army strength. The army supply may be close, but the strength of that army, well, you know, when you've got Immortals and Psystorm, it's still pretty damn good.
Yeah, look at his bank as well. Like he's 30, 40 supply ahead. He's got a good bank. He's even confident enough to get double upgrades going. 3 Archons, 2 Immortals, all the kiting in the world from uThermal, but that army packs a real punch from Drogo. And the thing is, he's got such a bank. He can do counter-attack damage as well. uThermal can't afford this, and I think he's starting to realize it as well. Drogo just too strong this game.
Now running out of steam, he is the Muslim. GG is called, and Drogo is going to tie this series up 1 apiece. And wow, you know, pretty well done considering. I think that this Oxide in general kind of gets a bit of a rap, right? Because it is very good for a lot of these aggressive Terran pushes, especially on 2 bases. But this wasn't a 2-base tank push. Like, he wasn't sieging it up and putting bunkers down there and saying, yeah, come down this small choke point and try to attack me. He just went with all of his normal units and his SCVs, and then being bunched up made those storms pretty juicy. The SCVs didn't really get to do a whole lot. The Hellbats, we didn't really get to see them have the impact that maybe we were hoping for in that kind of situation. And Drogo just, I mean, he focused on what was important and had everything that he needed at exactly the moment he needed it to defend.
Yeah, I liked a lot of Drogo's. In fact, I liked a lot of both their play. Like, uThermal was trying to not reveal what he was doing until exactly when he wanted to go. Drogo is very diligent about his scouting and keeping that Stalker alive. It's actually a bit tricky to do. But yeah, the fact that uThermal was defending with just like 5 or 6 Marines kind of thing, like just the absolute bare minimum that he could, that was good selling by him. But Drogo, he played safe. Like, he warped in Stalkers before taking the 3rd. He wasn't really, you know, he wasn't baited in any way, shape, or form. He was absolutely like, something must be going on here. So warped in more Stalkers than maybe you need. He wasn't super greedy. He was safe. And I liked a lot of the play from both of them there. They're obviously respecting one another. And so far, this series has been kind of like we all thought. uThermal trying to derail Drogo a little bit, and Drogo being very, very thought out and practiced. And I wouldn't be surprised if uThermal does something kind of crazy here again, because Drogo, when you let him do whatever he wants to do, he's very good at it.
Yes, he definitely is. And like I said, just really, really well played game by him, especially the pressure of losing a lot of those Stalkers early on. You know, we know that, you know, they are pretty expensive, not that easy to replace, and he was still ready for that next attack when he needed to be. So here we are in game number 3, the opportunity that this man has afforded himself after a rocky game number 1. In the top right, our red Protoss player, he is PtitDrogo.
And spawning over in the bottom left, as our blue Terran, it is uThermal. I think one of uThermal's greatest traits is the fact that I don't know him for just one build at all. I know he can pull out a whole array of very, very different styles, strategies, you name it. I mean, he's one of the biggest advocates, or at least was for quite some time, of mech versus Protoss, which just goes to show that he's a very, very versatile player. This game, again, a totally different build by him, the Barracks double gas opening.
Yeah, that's not something that we see particularly often in this matchup, just because, I mean, you can usually get away with the Reaper expand, right? If you're worried about being cheesed or something like that, the SCV kind of goes around early on, or you still just, you know, it's not really one of those things that at the highest level you can't find a way to prepare for with a normal strategy. So there has to be some sort of decision making behind this, right, Ben? He has to be looking to do something with this build specifically, and we're going to find out what that is, as it's a Reaper to begin with. So maybe he just wants to have like a quicker 1-1-1 setup with a delayed expansion. Maybe he just wants to put more pressure on, or maybe he's concerned that Drogo has a cheeky pylon somewhere by that 3rd or 4th, and maybe he's going to build a Stargate outside his base or something.
It could be a lot of things. When the probe arrives this late, like beyond the 125 mark, which is what this one did, I'm always a bit like, okay, was there a proxy gate or something? So that's what I'd be thinking if I was uThermal right now. We know from that scout pattern, Drogo just kind of searched around his base just to make sure there was no proxy barracks first. So they're both, or rather, Drogo's definitely respecting his opponent and knowing that he can proxy like he did in the first game. But to talk about what this could mean by uThermal, I think it was Innovation do this, where he went 2 Reaper Hellion, then he went Expansion, but then he turned it into just a 3 racks siege tank push, which completely obliterated his opponent. It was against Trap on Jagannatha, I believe, where there was a pause for 5 minutes. Then they went back into the game and it was over in 5 seconds. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful stuff. But I am curious because so many follow-ups can happen with this. So Drogo has to be very good with his scouting about what uThermal's actually up to.
Yeah, and it's kind of this awkward sort of deal where, you know, your adept shows up and you're like, oh, there's 2 Reapers here, and if that Hellion's there, then you've almost got like a kill secured pretty much on that. It's like a weird type of pressure that you're not typically going to see just because of the way that normal builds line up, and uThermal wanting to have that, wanting to get this early map control says a little bit. He doesn't even want to have to think about getting that early poke onto his natural or worrying about losing those SCVs. He wants Drogo thinking defensively for a little bit. You know, he wants maybe him to bring that probe over and finish a wall for no reason, because it's not going to be a huge Hellion focused play. But that medevac coming early with the Widowmine, the way that he set his infrastructure up before the expansion, the next level, the next tier of the attack could come at any time. And he already has the shield battery in the main. Those Reapers, they check in, immediately check out, have no interest in dying there. And he's just going to keep his little spot parked outside the base. But DeMuslim, even if he doesn't get damage done, at the very least, he could check that robo that's at the front or know where the army that's here is, at least, you know, keeping eyes on what Drogo's trying to do.
Yeah, I think uThermal's done all of this really well so far. Like, looking at how the series has gone, he has thrown out something a bit weird here, right? Like, it might end up in the same place, but it's been a bit of a weird start. And that is the kind of thing that can definitely throw off a player like Drogo. We do see this Widowmine here is creeping around, but Drogo, look at the timing on this probe just sitting here. Eventually it wants to make a pylon, obviously, but that is a very, very good scout by the Frenchman.
Yep, he's got eyes. Stalkers are prepared in the natural, waiting for that mine drop. That's definitely the most powerful aspect of this. Could throw the Reapers into the main, but it's like, what are you going to do with that, honestly? Not much, especially with the battery. So at the end of the day, you just kind of sitting here like, all right, as long as you don't look away during the one moment that medevac tries to go through, you should be okay. But well, hey, it is StarCraft, right? You're driving real fast when you're playing this game at this level, and one moment of hesitation, one moment of weakness is a moment of opportunity for the other player. So let's just keep our eyes on this. Siege tank is out. He's kind of got a similar setup to what we saw on Blackburn, right? He's not going for this quick armory with Hellbat kind of deal or anything like that. I guess he had the armory in that first game for the mine drop, but it's going to be a little bit more quickly into a normal Terran versus Protoss setup. And conversely, instead of Storm to Muslim, it's that Robo Bay as the first big tech option on the side of Drogo.
That little observer did get a little peep in the base of uThermal, did spot the Raven. And with that, you can be like, okay, could be a bit of a push. Now, you were onto something there. He's going for the Colossi, not for like charge and storm and stuff. I think if you're doing uThermal's build, this is kind of what you want to go up against, like that Colossus. So much power pivots on that for the Protoss player, whereas the Storm, or wait, did he? Okay, he's going to charge immediately after. Actually, I almost take back everything that I said. The way that Drogo's handling this and how he's building up, he knows exactly what he's up against here. He's really respecting the 2-base push of uThermal that's inevitably going to come. I'm liking everything that Drogo's thrown at him.
Yeah, he's going to have plenty with the Colossi. You can deal with the Marine heavy army. The Raven has some ability to affect that, but he's going to split this army up, right? He's loaded up the 2 medevacs, send them on the east side. As long as he stays outside the range of the tower, I can see there's no observer there. There's nothing watching it. He does have that southeast tower, so it's pretty much just avoid that ring. Should be able to get up to Drogo's base, and then we'll just see what happens from there. Bringing it all together, I think with the Raven maybe gives him I think that gives a pretty good opportunity, right? Because he has enough energy for an interference matrix for 1 or 2 Colossi. and that could open the door for the dive. So it looks like he's going to take that army, maybe push the third or the natural, and then try to get the drop into the main at the same time and really stress PtitDrogo's multitasking. We can see the play unfurling in front of us. And well, now at this point, we're just waiting for the ball to get hiked and see who executes better on this next fight.
Yeah, even that Widowmine finally in the natural does get the drop off, the unload there. The Widowmines go off, takes out, I think that was an Observer and a Stalker maybe. Nice reactions by Drogo, but the drop in the main as well. He has to recall.
Oh, he forces the recall too. Wow, yeah, that recall really huge. The whole army going back over into the main base. Interference matrix on the Colossus at the third. Widowmine's going to blow up the sentries, and as those force fields dissipate, the army can continue to charge onto this position. The Colossus, it does come out, and well, it gets locked down immediately again. So much of the power of this army neutralized by this Raven. And now as that ends, there's 2 Colossi. The rest of the Stalkers are here, but 15 probes were killed into Muslim. That army in the main base is still going. He's getting the shield batteries. 16 probes are dead, and a handful of Stalkers warped in. Could get that medevac. He's trying to target it, pulls it back at just the right time. Man, uThermal is controlling this engagement beautifully. Some fantastic micro out of our Dutch Terran.
Yeah, like Drogo, he reacted way too hard to that in the main, right? Like a big recall, a shield battery overcharge, and a warp in. Then the third was left totally exposed. This was, uThermal went full puppet master on Drogo here. Like, this was absolutely great play. I also love the waiting for that Widowmine drop behind the natural. I totally forgot about it. And
yeah,
just attacking in 3 points. It was really great play.
Yeah, well, talk about waiting to get the value out of that early attack. No, I think that you bring that up beautifully. Enforcing the recall, you can really see where the little bit of panic, the little bit of, I wasn't quite ready for that coming out of Drogo, and having his army scattered all over, leaving just that one Colossus really to defend the third. And that was just, I think the cherry on top for the Raven. When you have enough energy to hit it with the interference matrix one after another, and there's no prism there or anything to try to dodge it, just absolutely beautiful engagement. And as Drogo breaks down these rocks and starts to make his way back across towards uThermal's side of the map, a lot of this game starts to hinge on how well does this fight go. Can he hold this army back? Are we going to see something a little crazy? There's the anti-armor missile. Those zealots are incredibly vulnerable right now to Muslim.
Oh, they certainly are. They run into the meat grinder. Remember, they're not upgraded as well. And that Raven does eventually fall, but it was worth its weight in gold this game. The Archon's starting to fall as well. Another warp in by Drogo. He's really going all or nothing with this. He's not been making probes ever since the counterattack. And uThermal, he's pouncing on it. These Colossus are low. They're getting juggled. The one Viking's now trying to take out the warp prison, but the Colossus, they stay alive. 1 health, 1 does fall, but Drogo, that was his one opportunity, his one shot. No, the Widowmine!
Come on! He gets the prism, but the Colossus can't get away. GG, uThermal takes the 2-1. Oh, man.